Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode with the Road to Glory podcast. I'm Juliet.
And I'm Cecilia, and today we are here for some other content than we're usually doing because we are finally talking about GB3.
I feel like it's been a long time coming. GB3 is one of my favorite other feeder series. Like, I love all feeder series, don't get me wrong. But I really love GB3, especially because we know a lot of the drivers that are in it, maybe from different series. So yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It definitely has. Like, we have always, kind of teased that we will be branching into GB3, and, now, a year into the podcast, we are finally getting around to it. So, at least something good came out of the long break we've had from F3 and F2.
Exactly. Like, yes, it was horrible, but it did give us time to explore some different series and give you guys a little bit of a rundown of them, which is kind of what this week's episode will be about. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview on GB3, how it works, and then they also had their first race this past weekend. So we will not go too into depth because we'll be here forever then.
Yeah.
And you probably don't want to sit listening to us for that long, but we'll just give you a couple of the highlights and tell you how the championship is faring.
Yes, so basically just a nice overview if you're new to GB3, also if you have already watched it, but need to freshen up some details about how everything works. But first, before we get into talking about GB3, can we just celebrate for a moment that it's finally race week for F2 again?
I'm so excited. It's Miami race week. Everybody cheers. The crowd goes wild.
Yeah. Honestly, we've been waiting for this for too long.
I know. And this weekend specifically, because as we've mentioned, F2 have not been to this track before, it's going to be chaos. So you're going to want to tune into that or tune into next week's episode where we give you a race review on it.
Yes, but now back to what we're here for today. We're talking about GB3. Starting off with actually why you should watch it is, first of all, it's so easy to watch because it's literally available to watch for free on YouTube through the MSV TV YouTube channel. So all the races are there. Unfortunately, the qualifying sessions are not streamed, but still, all the races are there to watch.
Yes. Qualifying, you'll have to go and look at the timing sheet, which, you know, me and my love for a timing sheet.
Yeah.
But at least it's free to watch the races, and the racing is so incredible. So, if you are ever bored and you don't have any other feeder series to watch, head over to MSV where you can watch GB4 as well, which is not what we're talking about today, but they also stream it, and GB3.
So for those who may be new to GB3, wanted to start out by explaining a bit about how many teams are there, how many drivers. First off, with the teams, this is an odd one. Because technically, on the website, there are listed 10 teams,
Yeah.
but a full team has signed no drivers yet.
Yes, JHR Developments have all 3 seats available. And obviously we are also kind of new to GB3 as well. So I'm quite confused. The season's already started. Are they gonna get a driver or not? Because some teams only have 1 driver, some have 2, and the 3rd seat is still available, and some teams have 3 drivers fully. So it really depends which team you're looking at and how many drivers they have. It's not if you're thinking about this in a feeder series way of F1 Academy, F2, F3, it's a bit different to that with the amount of drivers that each team has.
Yeah, because technically every team are allowed to have 3 drivers like we see in the FIA Formula 3. But yeah, for whatever reason, there are some teams that have not filled out every single seat. Could also just be not enough drivers have the budget to compete in the series this year. Who knows? Everything is getting very expensive. Just living is expensive and racing is insane. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if more drivers are potentially announced. But so far, we have, for this opening weekend, we had 23 drivers this weekend.
Yes, We did. And just talking about the teams aspect, if you watch feeder series of F3 and F1 Academy and F2, you will recognize two of the teams because obviously this is a British series. We have Rodin and Hightech competing in it. And a lot of the time, if drivers like Jin Nakamura are doing a double season of GB3 and F3, they tend to stick with the same team because it just makes it a lot easier. So that's why he is with Hightech and he competed this last weekend. He's not doing a full campaign, he's just doing whichever races work out in his schedule. I actually like it when drivers do that because if you have the money, why would you not do more track time?
Exactly, like might as well when you are here. Like,
Yeah.
why not do an extra couple of races in another series? Also, hopefully now mentioning that he's driving for high tech. Like this is giving me war flashbacks to when Martinius Stenshorn was driving for high tech, both in FIA F3 and GB3, just like Jin Nakamura is doing now. And
Yeah.
he got like banned from Silverstone, I think, for F3 because they hadn't gotten a proof that he was racing there in GB3. So, like, please, Hightech, tell me that you have the pre-approval from the FIA or wherever you need it from, so Jin can actually race in F3 in Silverstone as well.
I'm really stressed because
Yeah,
obviously Silverstone is a race we're going to, and if Jin's
yeah.
not racing, like we're gonna have words. Please, can High Tech have learnt from their mistakes?
Fingers crossed on that. Surely they will. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. Also, now that you mentioned Rodin and Hightech, those are also kind of the two dominant teams in the championship. So even though we did see, when we come into the highlights from this weekend, another driver from another team actually kind of dominating this weekend, you would typically see across a season that most of the time a rodent driver ends up winning the championship, also like high tech being up there. So it will be interesting to see how the power dynamics play out throughout the season.
Exactly. And one thing to note about GB3 is it is a spec series. So everybody is using identical cars, engines, and tires, and they're Pirelli tires. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, definitely an important note to keep in mind. Now, talking about drivers that we may have seen in other series, there are actually quite a few familiar faces. Obviously, now we've already mentioned Jin Nakamura, who is doing both F3 and GB3. But we also have, talking about F3, a driver who actually did a couple of seasons in F3 a couple of years back, but he hasn't been in GB3 before, but like kind of still stepping down the ladder of the feeder series world, gone to GB3 with Nikita Bedrin joining GB3 this season.
Yes, very interesting to see because obviously GB3, you would normally think of it as a step before F3, but it is almost on a par there. So, like, I can understand if you can't get a drive in F3, GB3 is the next best place to go for a year and then see if you can go back up the next year. So, in that sense, it makes sense, but also it was a little bit shocking to see him. But we love Nikita, and it was nice to see him racing.
It definitely was, because we will come to how
Yeah.
great a weekend he actually had. So like, it's definitely like it makes sense from the perspective of like this is a chance for him to show what he's made of again and get attention from more people maybe. But yeah, talking about other drivers we have seen before, obviously we have two female drivers this season in GB3 being Abbi Pulling and Aurelia Nobels. Obviously, Abbi Pulling winning F1 Academy a couple of seasons back, now coming back to GB3 for her second campaign, and then Aurelia Nobels, also from F1 Academy, joining for her first season in GB3.
Yes, Abby sticking with Rodin, which obviously we saw her with Rodin in F1 Academy as well. So she's really got a good relationship with that team. Um, not the greatest weekend for Abby. I
No?
think we need to sage her. Like this is
Yeah.
someone who's been cursed, and I don't know who did it, who paid the Etsy witch, but like, can we reverse it? Because I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I was just shocked at what happened.
actually insane. Like, I'm still not over it, okay? I'm actually heartbroken for her. But we'll definitely get to that now. For those who are not familiar with how a weekend in GB3 works, because it is quite a bit different if you're just used to watching F3. Starting off, obviously, they have some practice sessions. We will not spend time talking
No.
about that. We are moving on to qualifying, which is here the special thing that we do see in other lower Formula series, that they have two separate qualifying sessions.
Yes. Which, can make sense. And there is a reason they have the two qualifying sessions, because they also have more races in a weekend than we would see in F3, because we have a race 1, a race 2, and a race 3. And your race 3 is your reverse grid race. And your race 1 is set by quali 1. And your race 2 is set by quali 2. And your third race is a combination of your fastest time, and then it's the reverse of the top 12.
Yes, it is top 12. You're all good. So for the reverse grid, yeah, it is similar to, say, F3, if you're all familiar with that, where it's the top 12. It makes sense when there are 30 drivers. Might be a bit much when there are only 23, but that's another side note. But yeah, the qualifying sessions are only 15 minutes long each, so definitely very short qualifying sessions. And yeah, typically you see drivers in both qualifying sessions like setting similar times what they did before, but obviously things can get shaken up slightly from qualifying to qualifying. However, we did see this week, and now we have mentioned how well Nikita Bedrin did. We have to mention that Nikita started off with a double pole position.
Literally insane. Obviously not pole for race 3,
No.
because he would be starting from 12th with the reverse, but actually so dominant.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised. Obviously, I probably shouldn't be, because
No.
he is one of the most experienced drivers at this level of racing. But still, like, joining the championship in a team that's not really championship winning,
No.
as of right now, we obviously don't know what will happen throughout the season. But definitely it's super impressive to see that. Other star performers from qualifying, I will have to mention Abbi pulling. Qualifying P4 and
Yeah.
P5 is super solid start to her season.
Really good. We take the highlights, and that's what she
Yeah.
needs to take away from this weekend. Like, there was so
Mm.
much potential in it. There was pace in that car. Like, there could have been podiums, but
Yeah.
never mind. We'll take it back. But something to note is all 3 races are the exact same length, and they are all 25 minutes long. And the entire weekend, you get 2 sets of tires to use. So by your third race, usually those tires are dead, because they've probably done either race 1 or race 2. So there can be a strategy of drivers saving their tires a little bit earlier in the weekend, so they still have it for the last race of the weekend. But yes, thought to mention that.
Yes, and as before we jump into the highlights from this weekend, I will also mention that the points system is completely different to what we're used to from F3. Honestly, I will be honest, say I had no idea how the point system worked until I looked it up this weekend. So basically, for race 1 and race 2, the point system is that if you win the race, you get 35 points, which is like quite a bit. Because
Yeah.
if you're used to F3, it's only like, as with F1, the 25 points for win. But here it is 35. And then the big difference is that points go down all the way to 20th with 1 point.
Yes. So it's nicer, because we're not in as high of a feeder series. So if you're lower down, it's not like you're going to go the whole season not scoring any points. If you're in 20th, at least you get a point.
Exactly, because like it does make a difference in the end, because you can have a poor-ish weekend but still come away with points. And now that the grid is not full yet, there's still seats available. It is kind of sad thinking about the 3 people who are the only ones who don't get a point from those races. But yeah, it is nice seeing this different point system. And then also another strange thing for race 3, which is obviously the reverse grid race, is first of all, a win is 20 points, and there are points down to 15th place with 1 point. But that is not the strange thing. The
No.
strange thing that I have personally never heard about is that you get a point for each position that you gain throughout the race.
Yeah, I actually really like this because
Yeah.
it gives emphasis on making places, like going
Mm.
out there, because maybe you start last, but if you make your way up and gain positions, you can gain a total of 12 points.
Yeah.
Incredible. 12
Actually
free, well,
insane.
not free points because you've made the way,
You
but
worked
12
for
free
it.
points.
Yeah, exactly. Because like then sometimes when you see in normal reverse grid races like F3 and you see the pole position person, the person who set pole in like
Yeah,
qualifying one, let's say, for this case, like starts down 12th, and then there's like it's kind of annoying sometimes to see that maybe they battle for their way forwards, but like they don't gain as much as they may deserve. But like here, they do gain a lot from actually making up those positions.
exactly. So it's different, but I really like it. And it was exciting to see this weekend. One more thing, actually, there's two more things I want to say. Is this is the second year of using this new car, and this new car only got DRS introduced last year. So we have DRS here, which we are familiar with. So that is just something to note, as well as there are 24 races across 8 weekend events over the season. The season's kind of 6 months. It tends to end usually when an F3 season ends, like we see with in Monza. So there is that 6-month break. And as we usually know, a lot of these drivers go and do Formula Regional Oceania or they do Middle Eastern Series. But just thought that that's important to note.
Yes, definitely important to note.
One more thing I've just thought about is that I was listening to the commentary this weekend, and they were saying that there are only 3 returning drivers to the series this year, which is really good because we're getting all of these rookies in battling it out in these new cars, because they have not, I mean, they've probably tested in the cars before, but they haven't done a full weekend in the cars. So, Silverstone, if you didn't watch it, you can go watch the replays.
Exactly. Also because there are kind of a big gap until the next race. I believe it's like a month from now. So like the end of May is the next race. You have plenty of time. Go back and watch the races from this weekend and you can be all prepared for next time to go racing. Also, like now that you mentioned, not a lot of drivers have returned to this series this season. I also think it's interesting that the tagline of the series, I don't know how long it has been that, but like on their website it says like the proven step to FIA F3, but like
Yeah.
sadly none of the drivers from last year's championship have actually jumped up to F3, like not any full-time drivers anyway, only like the drivers who did like part of the season. So that is kind of interesting because usually we do see a lot of these drivers actually making the jump up to F3.
Exactly. I would like it this year for next year that we see whoever does well or wins a championship to make it up, especially with like Rodin and High Tech who have these drivers here now in the team. Like it would make sense for them to take them to F3.
Exactly. But I guess we can move on now to some highlights from the weekend, both some good ones and
And
some very bad ones. Do you want to start off with your first highlight?
I will say
Mm,
Nikita had an incredible weekend, but I do think he needs to work on his starts
yeah.
because in race 1 and race 2, I noted he lost the lead. He did gain it back in both of them, but I do think Nikita needs to, I mean, it's a new car for him, right? But
Oh.
Nikita, work on your starts and you could be flying off because we have the driver who overtook him, Martin Molnar, and he actually like had a big gap in front of him. He gained like seconds. Obviously, it didn't end up working out, but Nikita, that could have been you.
Exactly. Also, if they come to another track later in the year and he still has poor starts, like it's no guarantee that he will be as easily be able to overtake people in front of him. Because obviously Silverstone is a great track for racing and he
Yeah.
could overtake them. But like it's not a guarantee at every single track that's gonna be as easy. So hopefully for him, like the only thing we can give of him of negative feedback is work on your starts and things hopefully will be great from there. Because like very impressive to see him in his first weekend getting the win in both race 1 and race 2.
Exactly. There was a point in race 3 where I was like, is Nikita gonna
Yeah.
get the back-to-back-to-back, which has like never been done while
Mm.
GB3 has been called GB3, but that was not to be. He still had incredible race in race 3. I think he landed up being P5, obviously started P12, but I was like, oh, are we at least gonna get like a podium?
Yeah, it was getting very intense at the end of race 3 for sure. It would have been insane
Yeah.
if that had ended up happening. And honestly, it was fairly close, but we can get to the dramatic ending of race 3 in another highlight. But before that, I will have to mention Abbi pulling and her the worst luck weekend ever. Obviously, race 1 ending with a suspension failure, I believe. So definitely not her day. And then we think, oh, we go into race 2, and she was on for podium. Like, I know there was another driver in front of her that had a car issue and had to go out of the race. But
Yep.
like, still, she had to be there in P4 to inherit that P3. And as the regular listeners of this podcast know, I hate a safety car ending one lap shootout at the end because it can never end good and never for my drivers. So, of course, everything had to go wrong.
And okay, Abbi was defending so well.
Mm.
She was battling with 2 other drivers, and I was really stressed. Like, I was
Yeah.
screaming at the TV. That's how stressed I was. They
Mm.
were 3 wide going round a corner, and I was like, this can't end well. And it did not.
No, honestly, I will give credit to Abbi for really fighting and giving her all. Like, she was not giving up that podium. And I think when the crash did end up happening, it was not on her, at least. At least that's
No.
not how I saw it. So it was so heartbreaking to see her getting taken out on the final lap.
And it was quite dramatic. Like,
Mm.
Gonzalez was on like right next to her, and his car like flipped over hers.
Yeah.
Like it, and obviously they were both fine. It was okay,
Mm.
but it was shocking to see. I mean, we do see this in
Mm.
feeder series. These cars like to go for a little bit of a fly.
And now, looking at the points that Abbi is leaving this weekend with, it truly does not reflect how great a weekend she could have had and like how much pace she showed. So it's so unfortunate because like looking at where she is in the standings, like I believe even now, no shade to Aurelia Nobel, like she had kind of an anonymous weekend, we can say,
Yeah,
to be nice. She didn't like show much, and like she is ahead of her in the championship. Like they had so different weekends. Like
yeah.
Abby had the potential to really score some good points this weekend, and unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. So I really hope that she's able to like move on from this and get better results soon, because I know she's also said going into this season like she's not here for the participation trophy.
Yeah.
So like she's here to actually really show what she got, and hopefully she'll be able to in the upcoming weekends.
Yes, there's so much potential. She is so incredibly talented. It just wasn't her weekend this weekend. Still on the topic of race 2, I do want to say that we did, with all of this chaos, see Jin in P3, which always makes me happy. And he did have a really good weekend overall.
Yes, definitely a great weekend for him to start off this season. As because he's not doing the full season, because obviously there are some races that will clash with F3. It's really positive for him to see to like get everything out of it when he has the opportunity to. Obviously, on the topic of Jin Nakamura, we have to mention that he obviously won race 3, and like what even was that final lap? Like,
Oh my word. Okay, obviously we know it's a reverse grid race, is going to be chaos, right? But we did have Flynn Jacks leading the race for so much of it. Okay, something to note about him is he has had 44 races in GB3, so he's the most experienced on the grid. But unfortunately, he's only ever gotten 2 top 10 finishes never let a car restart. He led the safety car restart perfectly, but his luck just absolutely left him there, and it was
Yeah.
just like the last, almost the okay, it's probably the third last corner
Mm.
on the last lap. He was still leading,
Oh.
but he landed up being P3 because of the intense battle that was going on between him and two other drivers.
Yes, honestly, I can't even imagine what he must have been feeling. It must have been unreal. Like you have been going through the whole race thinking, I'm finally winning this one, and then it's like taken away from you at like one of the last possible moments.
Exactly, and he's also had an injury in the past. He broke his leg. He had to have rehab for that, get back in the car, and he was overweight, and there was like he's had like a whole bunch of things happen to him, and
Yeah.
this was his moment, but at least he still got his best
Yeah.
position ever with a P3 and a podium and a trophy, and I just hope he's happy with that. And this just goes to show maybe he's got pace in the car
Mhm.
this year, so who knows what can happen.
Definitely still something to celebrate getting that podium for sure.
Yeah.
And I was like, now back to Jin Nakamura winning the race. Like, can we please get a Jin masterclass in F3? Like, we are so ready for that. Like, can we get it soon, please? I can't believe that we actually have to wait to Monaco until F3 is back, but like, let's not think about that right now.
It's crazy, and like we've not seen a lot. Like Australia was forever ago,
Yeah.
and like I've low-key forgotten what's happened. Like I need to see Jin back there performing so
Mm.
well. Like this weekend was just like the perfect little bit of a taste. It got my appetite back up, and I'm like, now I obviously want to watch every other GB3 weekend, but I'm also really excited to see the F3 championship pan out.
Yes. Also, like most of the F3 drivers are not doing anything really in this break because like it's not that usual for F3 drivers to do other championships like at the same time
Yeah.
as F3. Like it is usual like in the winter break and whatnot that they're doing other things. But like it will be interesting to see if it is a positive that he has been like kept himself going in another car.
Yeah, Jen is like, what? You're all slacking.
Yeah.
I've been here working away. Yes, it's not technically the same car, but I'm keeping my skills up. And, if we get a Jen masterclass, like dominating in Monaco, it's because of GB3.
Yes, you heard it here first, guys. But I guess that is kind of the highlights that I had. I really enjoyed just watching this weekend in general. I was like, Silverstone is just the best. So we really started on a high here.
Exactly. So good. It's so easy to watch. Also, I
Mm.
think they go back to Silverstone
They
later
do.
on in the season.
Yeah.
So, if you missed out and you don't want to rewatch it, you can, but if you don't want to, tune in for the next Silverstone race later on in the year. But yeah, I absolutely adore GB3 as a series, and I cannot recommend it more for you to go and watch. If you watch other feeder series, why not try GB3?
Exactly, especially now that we do have these long breaks in between races in some of the other feeder series. And as like just in general, we have so much going on in like this step of the ladder of feeder series with like Freck starting as well and F3 Euro, whatever it's called. I don't even know anymore. Like, we have a lot of stuff going on. There's plenty of racing to watch.
There definitely is. But don't forget to follow us on all of our socials. We have some exciting things in the work, so make sure to follow us on our Instagram, on our TikTok, and our Twitter, because that's probably where you'll hear about everything first. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube that you like and subscribe, and if you're watching on Spotify or just listening, make sure you are following us. But that is it for this weekend. Don't forget, next weekend we will be back with an F2 race review of Miami, which, as I mentioned, is bound to be chaotic.
Yes, I honestly cannot wait to be talking about everything that went down in Miami in F2. It's gonna be so good. You will not want to miss it. And also, I know we have teased for a while that something exciting is coming, but like, trust us, like, it is just around the corner. You
Yeah.
really do not want to miss what we have planned. So definitely we hope to see you back here next week and every single week after.
Yeah.
We are here every Wednesday, so hopefully you will be too. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.